Good morning and welcome to Klingspor's 20th annual Woodworking Extravaganza.
Yeah, we've got a lot cooking for today and the rest of the week. Today we've got a special guest with us. In case you didn't know, by the way, I'm Chris and this is Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at least now you know who we are. Today we've got a special guest. Mike, let's bring him in, Mr. Tim Sqwayer.
Howdy. Hi,
Good.
Chris. Hey, Mike. How's it going?
How you doing?
How you doing? Hey, that is an accurate website for me, but my more up-to-date stuff is probably newperspectivesmusic.com because I haven't updated that site in like a year and a half. I just saw the
one with a whole lot more letters. I like it.
Then you might want to update
Right.
your Facebook because that's where I got it from.
Yeah, I haven't updated that in about a year and a half either. So
newperspectivesmusic.com.
yeah, just like eventually I'm going to make timsway.net just a page of newperspectivesmusic.com because it's just like like I don't really do too much furniture work and it's more like an about me and my YouTube stuff. But the more important thing is the guitar business. So I'm just going to eventually migrate all that stuff over to just one page on that new site. But my whole store and everything is now on newperspectivesmusic.com because it's like a better host for that. So everything, when you go to Tim Sqwayer, if you want to like purchase one of my squares there, it takes you to the other site anyways. It's just that, there's like all these other things to do,
Yeah. Like building stuff.
Right. Like real stuff, not internet stuff.
It takes time to reclaim things.
It does.
So, Tim, what are you up to nowadays?
Well, I mean, like I was just sort of saying, some of you may or may not know me from, just being like the reclaim guy, which I still obviously am. I work pretty much exclusively with reclaim materials, but the past few years I've really shifted focus to just making musical instruments because I have a background in music, and it seemed like the right place to sort of push my message of repurposing, because it would always bug me when I like watch some bleeding heart singer songwriter singing a song about saving the planet on his like Coca-Cola fingerboard and Honduras mahogany body, this guitar that was built on the sweat of slave workers in other countries and all this stuff. And it's just like, dude, why are you doing that? Like, we can change and we can be better and we can be smaller and local and still make awesome stuff, but think about the environment. And so in the footprint that we're leaving behind. So recently I've been working a lot more with just like there's some local tree cutters, because I figure if like a tree falls in my neighbor's yard, that's just as green as like tearing down an old barn, you know what I mean? Versus like tree falling in, Africa. So I've been doing more of that type of stuff too, like actually like driving by the side of the road and picking up those logs that are on the side of the road and cut down by a tree service if I can pick it up myself, because I don't have a mill yet or anything, but maybe in the future.
There you go.
But it's just all about keeping it, just being aware. It's like, I always say, like, people think that I'm like some hippie that lives in a yurt out in the woods, but I'm not. I live a normal life. I'm just like more aware of what I'm using, and because of that, it makes it easier and better to sort of move on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
What is if someone sees you on the side of the road picking up a log, stop and help load the truck.
Right. So thank you. And my truck is little, so I can only take so many logs at a time. But
what you got for any questions from Mr. Tim Sqwayer?
Well, I don't know. I'm assuming with what you're doing, you're using traditional CNC bits. I know you got a couple of CNCs and Avid, and the other day you were telling us about some new little machine you were testing out. You want to tell us a little more about that?
Oh, right. Because, we were going to focus on CNC a little bit. A few years ago, I was teaching my son, he's in the shop with me a lot. And I kind of just had this, like, I had no interest whatsoever in CNC. To me, it wasn't real woodworking. I was totally in that camp. I didn't want to sit in front of a computer. But I realized as I was teaching my son, like, to make stuff, that I was teaching him an antiquated approach. Maybe for me in my 40s, it'd be okay if I never got into it. I could continue to make a living. But if he really wanted to pursue this path, he would be basically useless in the workforce if he didn't start understanding some of this tech. So I forced myself to learn it, and I got one of those little piranhas. And he was like, "Oh, this is cool," and you still rather use a hammer and a hand plane. But I got hooked. I just fell in love with it. And what I like about it is with that sustainability and that eco-conscious mind, that I can I can work to a finer level, but I can also, and I'm still learning, I can get to a point where, like, we talk about nesting and woodworking, it can be a lot less wasteful using the CNC. And so those two things really attracted me to it. And like, I'm not like some super skilled woodworker. I'm just like a guy that likes to work with his hands. And so it also fills in a lot of gaps where, like, maybe I don't have those 10,000 hours of practice into, whittling and carving and stuff like that by hand. But with the machine, I'm probably at the 10,000 hours point by now to learn that, because it's just a separate skill set, But I found I took to that better than I did to maybe some of the hand tools. So it sort of fills some voids for me. Like, I'm just terrible at cutting straight lines, man. They're hard. Straight lines are hard.
I thought if it looked straight, it was straight.
Right. Well, it is, until you have to put a guitar fret in that slot, and then it's
Needs to be a little bit
the
more.
fret. Yeah, the fret tells you differently.
Well, and one of the things that I've learned through my CNC time is it's probably one of your most valuable employees too. It allows you to let that employee work doing whatever it's doing, and then you're off creating the next thing and getting other materials and products together to go on there. So it kind of incorporates that as an extra employee in your shop.
Oh, 100%. It's like sometimes even like having three of me here using that stuff, and I can rely on them to not show up drunk, which which is beneficial. But I say that a lot. I'm like, well, that's the good woodworker in the shop. I'm the one sweeping up after him, because someone has to sweep up here too, right?
Yeah.
And it's always me, because I work alone by design. So whether I'm pushing a broom or I'm cutting something, I'm making the same amount of money. So if that machine can do one thing, and then I can take a few extra minutes to sweep, like, that's like doubling the income in essence.
Very cool. And I've seen quite a bit of your stuff, and you do some very intriguing things that, most people look at CNC and they think, oh, I can make signs, but you see CNC and you think a whole realm of other things that you can do with it. And you put out some very creative projects.
Thanks. I got real lucky that I made friends with the people over at Vectric. I use Vectric software, Sqwayer. And I've been working with them for a few years now. And one of the things I do is I make a video and a free project for them every other month on their YouTube channel. And so the idea is, if you're a paid up member of Vectric, or you have the software and you're in the community, you can download these projects and use them for free. So, which is fun, because what that does is it means that like 6 times a year, like every other month, I get to just make something just for the sake of experimenting and learning something new on the CNC. And that's exactly what I do. Is I don't want to make a sign project, because anybody can make a sign. So it's like, well, what can I do? And I'm not a CNC whiz at all, like an expert. So it's the process is people sort of learning with me. And I'm sure that some of the projects I do, people are like, yeah, well, I learned that 4 years ago, whatever. Maybe they don't care. And then there's probably other projects who are like, oh, well, that's really interesting, and it kind of comes along, because everybody that works with CNC is at a different level. And so I try to do stuff at sort of each level up to my level, but just pushing mine just a little bit over each month. And that's such a great opportunity, to just like be like forced to learn,
Well, no matter where you are in the CNC level, as far as your experience, you can watch someone teach a beginning level thing and you're reminded of something that maybe you forgot. That's just a simple technique or a simple little tip. So, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are in your CNC world. There's always something you can learn or be reminded of. So, and I like that.
Yeah.
You do your projects. They're always interesting, and you always have those little nuggets of gold, that are worth, you don't want to skip forward, because you always have those little nuggets, some pocketed somewhere in the middle. That's like, oh, wow, that's, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's great.
I think that where I lack in experience and skill, I make up for in a twisted worldview, because I spent so much of my life, whether it's CNC or playing music or just paying the bills, I spent so much of my life looking for a way to do it without buying something, or without maybe even out of laziness, even leaving. It's like, oh, over there, I've got the thing I need, but I don't want to walk over there. So how can I make that happen with what I have here? And it's just a muscle you know, like that sort of problem solving muscle that I think I have a pretty good like approach to things that maybe is a little different than other people. So while what I do and the end result might not be as good as someone that actually knows what the heck they're doing, that person that knows what the heck they're doing might, like you, might see that idea and be like, you know, I never would have thought of that, and then apply it to your knowledge and your understanding and your tools, and then it becomes something greater. Like my favorite thing in the world is when I make some project and then like a month later someone shows me theirs and it's 100 times better than mine because they're like better woodworkers and they thought it through more. Like, yeah, like that's, you know, that's exactly what I want to see happen. I'm not trying to show like that, like, hey, look at me, I'm the best CNC operator in the world or anything. I'm just trying to learn in real time and encourage other people to try new things, think, you know, eco-consciously while they're doing it, but also just, you know, step outside of their comfort zone and try new things and experiment and not be afraid to fail. I fail on camera all the time. It's like my brand.
Yeah, but that's exactly where you prosper is when you fail. You take a look at something you were doing. You thought you were doing it really well, and then something failed along the way, and you thought, well, what caused that to happen? I wasn't expecting that. And then when you evaluate it, you actually come out better than what it was before. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You don't learn if you don't fail. You know, if you understand everything that just happened, you didn't learn anything. You just repeated something.
Or you got really lucky.
Yeah, or you got really lucky, which happens sometimes, not as often as I'd like. Just yesterday, my son Vance, he has like a remote control car, like a fast one where you have to, you know, plug the batteries in and recharge them and stuff. And it wasn't steering. And so we're like, oh, maybe the remote needs to be repaired with it or whatever. And we'll pull the manual out, going this thing, and it's driving him nuts. Like he can't figure out why it won't steer, but the motor's working. And he's like, yeah, everything's plugged in right. And then I went and I looked at it like 2-3 times. And then like the fourth time I looked at it, I realized that there's the 3-pin connector, you know, black, red, white, they were reversed when he plugged it in.
Oh. And
I was like, oh, well, there's your problem. Unplugged it, plugged it in, it works fine. And he's like, oh my God, I feel so stupid. I can't. And I was like, kind of like, well, dude, that happens to all of us all the time. Like, that's like, you've watched me do that. You know, it's like, it's okay. We all do that. And that's like you were saying about those reminders, like having a failure and having a mistake like that is a really good humbling experience to remind you that, you know, you don't know everything and you're still human and you're still flawed. And it's okay.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And now he's going to, next time he's plugging that car in, he's going to check those wires.
Every single time now.
Yeah. For the rest of his life. That's how you learn.
Don't tell him to take a silver or a black Sharpie and mark it the correct orientation once he plugs it in.
That way put an X on it.
Line up his lines.
Yep.
Yeah. There's one of those little nuggets, right? You know, I didn't think of that last night.
Either that or the manufacturer should at least make the plug where it's one way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't fit the wrong way. Yeah.
Right.
But that's I can't do anything about that.
So
actually I could get a new plug and rewire it.
So I noticed on a lot of that you do, especially when you're doing the guitar builds, is that you're utilizing the CNC as you would in making a guitar to route out the areas for the pickups, where the wires are going to go, the back plate, the plugs, you know, everything. You're kind of utilizing that in a way that makes it almost idiot proof for you. When you go to wire everything up, it's all done. Like you kind of set it all up really nicely. You have a nice design to it. And I think that's something special for the CNC that I see people starting to do more and more. Now, I'm not into it as much as Chris is by far. But when I watch things, I kind of pay attention to, oh, that's a different way of using that, or to actually create the software to do that for you.
Well, here, let me show you something. I'll be right back. I'm sure you guys know that. I'll grab a couple props here. I have a guitar. So I don't know if you know it or not, but you know, I make these videos, and so a lot of people ask me, like, they say, I want to make guitars, I don't know the CNC, how can I get into it? And before I had a CNC and I was making guitars, you know, you would mess stuff up, like, you know, the neck and the pickup wouldn't be aligned because you'd be doing it by hand. And the CNC makes it so easy because you can draw a line, snap it all to the line, and go. And then you can go and you can buy templates for all these specific pockets for the parts and stuff. They're easy, you know, people cut them out of MDF and out of Lucite. But you know what no one does is they put them all together so you can't mess it up. Like,
that's a good idea.
Here's where the neck goes. There's where the pickup goes. If you clamp this onto a blank, you know, and route it out, they're all going to be lined up, and that's where the bridge goes. This would be, you know, somewhere else in the guitar that's unrelated. But so I mean, there are people that do that, but it's so it's just like little things like that that because I got into CNC, like I never really would have thought of that. And then as I got into, it's like, oh yeah, if I just make one template instead of four, one for each part, that's like eliminating a mistake that I can make. And so, you know, yeah, you go like, here's one that I'm working on right now. You know, it's two-sided, and this one's a little complicated because it has a tremolo. But so in the CNC, I can measure all this to the, you know, to the thousandth. I tend to cut the pockets out in scrap wood and check them to make sure all the parts will fit and stuff before I do my final. But that's why I have the CNC, because I know me, I'm the kind of guy that's going to plug the wires in backwards like my son if I'm not, you know, careful. And this way I can't, you know.
That makes it more accurate every time.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, we all have 100 things going on in our head all the time, and you know, guys like me are really lucky that I mean, I get to spend more time in the present than I think most humans, because I'm here and I'm operating dangerous equipment, you know. Whereas like if you're in an office on a computer, so many people are like, they're on Facebook and they're scrolling and they're thinking about other things, but there's nothing like a table saw spinning in front of you to like snap you into the minute, right? And there's something about really living in the present, but we don't all live in the present all the time and in the shop, and that's when accidents happen, and that's when pickups end up being in the wrong spot. And so I try to eliminate all of those and just make it. And again, it goes into waste, right? If I started with the idea that I want to save trees and not waste them, every time I drill the wrong hole, I just wasted another piece of wood.
Yeah. Well, especially if you have something, a really nice blank for the guitar body or for the base, you know, for the actual body itself, you don't want to mess that up, because if you do, then it's a burn pile piece, and it could have been for something really gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was first learning, so I never had any experience woodworking until my early 20s. I was renting an apartment from a cabinet maker, and I was, you know, pursuing music as a career at the time. So I was, you know, broke and stuff. But he you know, he was a cabinet maker. He played a little guitar. I saw his wood shop. I didn't even know what any of the stuff was called, and I told him, I was like, I always wanted to make my own bass. And he tells me, he's like, oh, well, that's you can't do that. That's too much work. You know, there's this and that. Blah blah. He starts throwing all these terms out. I'm like, all right, you know. Like 2 weeks later, I walk by his shop, and he's in there. He's got a book. This is pre-internet, you know. He's got a book called like How to Make Guitars, and he's got all these shapes that look like guitars cut out. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, no. He's like, I got to thinking. He's like, I think I know how to do this. I think I can make a guitar. And I was like, you have to teach me. And so I got into the shop and you know, started making some guitars. And I never touched the table saw. I was terrified of it. I did everything on the bandsaw, and if I had to cut a straight line, he did it for me. And because I was like, I just had images of my fingers flying off and never playing an instrument again, and I was just terrified of it. I still am. Still very, very respectful of the table saw. But yeah, we were making it. So we, you know, we would go to this lumber yard, because he was a typical cabinet maker, and he worked for rich people, so he's making cabinets out of cherry and stuff. And we would go to the lumber yard, and we'd buy the Honduras mahogany and the ebony, and it would cost hundreds of dollars. And we'd screw up, and we'd throw it literally into this fire pit in his shop. He had like a wood burning stove. And that was in the 90s when I started thinking about it. And it wasn't because I wanted to save the planet, it's because I didn't have the money to buy another piece of Honduras mahogany. You know, it was like my broke ass musician life that led me to sustainability. It just, you know, and again, I had that opportunity to be in the moment in the shop and to sand. You know, I'd be sitting there and sanding and thinking for hours, because I was doing it all on a bandsaw, so there's a lot of sanding. And I would just think about things like, where did this tree come from? And then I'd grab an encyclopedia, because there's no internet, and I'd look it up, and you know, and the next thing you know, like, this all makes perfect sense.
Now, other than just woods, both domestic and exotic, it seems like you've made a lot of musical instruments out of different types of materials most people probably wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah, I like to mess around. Like behind me, this side, you can see that white base that's hanging there. That's all Corian kitchen countertop that got thrown away from a demo. I like to find use for things that other people have deemed useless. And so obviously I started with a lot of pallets back in the day in barnwood, right? And there's still, you know, staples of my shop. But when I started using that, people were throwing away pallets in barnwood. Now pallets and barnwood have value. Like they actually sell pallets at some box stores, which is just stupid. You know, and barnwood is expensive. It's more expensive to buy barnwood now in some instances than it is to buy freshly milled local lumber or even imported lumber in some cases. So it's kind of like, oh, well, mission accomplished. People are thinking about this now. They're not just throwing it away. So then I started going to, well, what else are people throwing away that maybe I can shed light on its usefulness? And, you know, kitchen countertops is a great example. Every time someone remodels a house, they throw away their Corian countertop and they put in a granite one or whatever. And my favorite one is hollow core doors, because those are the first thing to get ripped down when someone's remodeling a house. The most that they ever get used after the rip down is that the guy puts on 2 sawhorses and puts his chop saw on it while he does all the trim work, right? Cuts into it while they're doing the demo. And then that last door that he actually saved for a while gets thrown in the dumpster at the end of the job. So every house, like my little ranch, someone had already switched them when I bought the house. But I mean, it has like 12, 14 doors in it, you know, counting closets and bathrooms and everything. And those are just, every time someone remodels a house, man, there's like 20 of these things getting thrown in the dumpster somewhere. No one does anything with them. So I started experimenting with those, and that's been like a big part of my past year and a half or so, or 2 years, has been like just tearing apart hollow core doors and seeing how far I can push them. Like that double base there, that's the back and sides of that are hollow core doors. And I don't know what else I have around here, but I've made all sorts of stuff. And I always go back to instruments again, because like an instrument is an art that it's like an art that creates art. You know, if you make a coffee table, it's like a piece of art that holds a coffee cup. You know, and it's, unless you're like someone that entertains a lot, you know, it's really not getting seen. But if you're a musician and I can give them art that then goes on and continues to make art. So now I've taken something like a hollow core door that is completely useless, and I've made it into a work of art unto itself via video content, as well as just its, you know, actual physical presence. And then that piece of art can go on to make other art. It's like a, you know, to use like a sort of modern term, it's almost like a negative carbon neutral footprint. You know what I mean? I mean, like to bring something from like literally the dumpster to potentially inspiring thousands of people. That's the idea, and that's why I like making instruments. You know, so then you give it to the right musician, and she goes out and plays for other people, and then it starts breaking the cycle. You know.
Now, with the remodels, is that what gave you the idea for the nail guitar?
Well, yeah, that actually goes back to pallets, because when you dismantle pallets, there's a bunch of nails, and I would always joke about it, and I call them my retirement fund, because, you know, you got to pick them up so you don't get them stuck in your tires or whatever. And I would just put them in a bucket. Like, I didn't want to throw them away because they're steel. And so it was always like the joke was, when I retire, I'm going to take all these buckets of nails and bring them into the scrapyard and get a cup of coffee. But then I started messing around. I did an art show a few years ago where I made a hammer out of them. I welded a bunch of nails together into the shape of a hammer, and it actually worked enough to make a little wooden frame to mount it on, which I thought was pretty cool. And so then I was thinking about other things I wanted to do. Ultimately, what I want to do with my nail collection is I want to make a hand, so it's fingernails, right? Yeah. And then I want to continue to grow that hand into a life-size replica of me.
In nails.
In nails, like a human form, of life-size 6-foot tall human form in nails, which is complicated. So I thought I'd start with a simpler shape, which is like a guitar shape that a shape I'm very familiar with making. So I made that, and I didn't even I cut a wood center to make it, so I wasn't making a guitar out of it. I was just making the body. And I welded a few hundred nails or whatever together, nailed them into this body, and then welded it all out. And I think I'm done now. It took a while.
Now, what was that? There was a magazine it was featured in, right? Was it Guitar Player?
It got picked up. I don't think it was actually made the paper magazine, but it got picked up online, like guitarworld.com or guitarplayer.com, and went around, and got all the hate and some of the love,
Oh, yeah. So
40,000 comments of people saying, "Oh, you better get a tetanus shot,"
It was painted. Where is it at now?
It's in my guitar truck. It's technically for sale. I have so many hours in that damn thing. I think I put it up for like $2,000 on my reverb.com page, thinking that maybe someday someone will understand and get it and buy it for the art piece that it is, because it's not like a really I mean, as a fully functioning instrument, it plays everything, but it's heavy and it's awkward, you know. Ideally, the idea home for the guitar is that you'd be in some kind of heavy metal band, and the lead guitarist would have it on a stand on the stage. There'd be a fog machine behind him, the spotlight on it, right? And so they play their whole show with this guitar just sitting there, and the audience just sees it and just figures it's a prop. But then for the last song of the night, the lead guitar player puts down his regular guitar, picks that up, and plays the last big hit song of the night on it, right? You know, and then the crowd's like, "Oh my God, the thing actually works!" And then he goes into like the big epic, you know, Stairway to Heaven solo, whatever their big signature number is, and he plays it on this nail guitar, and he has a little packet of fake blood, like taped into his arm somewhere or something, that he punctures on it. So while he's doing his, you know, he's on his knees, his hair, he's all sweaty, and there's fake blood running down his arm and down the instrument and stuff. That's what the guitar is built for. So if you were watching, call me, you know, I'll give you a deal.
I was going to say that I don't think there's anything more metal than a metal guitar.
Right. I mean, it would just be, it's a, you know, like guar, you know what I mean? Just like performance art is kind of the idea. So.
And it's all welded. So is it unlikely to fall apart if banged against amplifiers and speakers?
Oh, it would win. Yeah.
It would win.
Yeah, it would win.
The unbreakable breaking guitar.
Yeah. I mean, a nail or two might shed off the thing if you really started wailing it against the edge of the stage, but you know, it would win.
Nice. All right. So CNC related, what is it that you use mostly right now? Like, what is your number one CNC machine, your go-to?
Oh, 100%. It's my Avid CNC behind me. I freaking love that machine. It's like the most important piece of equipment in my shop, hands down. And sometimes when you have those conversations, like, well, what if you only had a 100 square foot shop, or you had to get rid of all your tools, you can only keep one? I used to always say that the Desert Island tool would be like the angle grinder or something like that, because it's fun and sculptural. But honestly, like, I would get rid of my table saw before I would get rid of my CNC, my Avid, because anything, I mean, it's like slow and awkward, but I can do everything on this. Mm-hmm. Like, I can cut straight lines like a table saw. I can plane on it. I can joint on it. I can do carving. I can do everything that any of my other tools can do. I can do on that. It just might take longer or be more complicated. Such a good machine. It's the heart and soul of this shop. Cool.
Do you still have the Piranha?
I do not have the Piranha. I gave that to my podcast partner, Phil Pinsky. Because he only lives, like, even though he lives in another country, it's only about a 6-hour drive from me. And when my daughter was going to college in Vermont, that was like almost like a halfway point. So I went up to visit her with my family, and he came down. We all had lunch, and I gave him the Piranha.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So now he has no excuses. He can CNC stuff too.
Yeah. He uses it every once in a while. He was real into it for a while. He kind of goes in and out with his interest level in it, because, you know, he's not working full time. He's a hobbyist, you know. Mm-hmm. So sometimes he'll like get into it because it'll make sense for what he's doing. And the Piranha is a great machine for that, because it is small and it can tuck away, you know. But so I went from that to I had a benchtop Avid 2x3, which when I got that after the Piranha, I was like, oh my God, I'll never need more CNC than this, you know. and then I got this thing, and it's I have the 4x2 configuration of it right now, the smallest version of the professional series. And when I got that, I said, oh my God, I'll never need more CNC than this. And thinking about expanding it to the full 8-foot, to a full 4x8, and putting a spindle on it. If I can get I need to run another 220 line to put a spindle on, but hopefully in 2021 I'll do that. I got to knock a wall out in the shop and stuff.
Just small stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, it's always space, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a huge difference. When he got, which one did you get? The Shark originally?
Yeah, I had the Shark HD,
and it was the router type, and then got an Axiom with the spindle, and it's just night and day as far as sound goes, and just that change, not the brand necessarily, but just having the spindle versus the router, it's a huge difference. Yeah, and there were even that's the next step. Definitely is to get into the spindles. So I can really start controlling, because I don't know much about feeds and speeds. You know, it's a lot of guesswork with a router. But to get into where I can really start managing and micromanaging those types of things,
would make a huge difference, you know, and the sounds obviously would be nice to lose that screaming router. But like the other thing about these just little things, like never mind the beefiness of it and the motors, but there's like just the stop on it. Like if you come to the end of the gantry, it stops, right? You know, little brake comes on. Whereas like the Piranha, it would actually spin. You know, just like and then if it spins just like even a quarter of a turn, now all of your measurements are off, and you got to re-zero everything. And so just like little things like that too are what really is the next step up into when you get into like professional grade machines. You know, so maybe someday I'll get a tool changer. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
When we talk to a lot of customers, and you know, that's one of the things, you know, whenever people try to get into CNC, it's, well, I have, you know, 1,000 or 2,000. This is all I have to spend. I try to lean them away from looking at it just from a budget perspective and look at it. Okay, what are you trying to do? Because it's, you know, it makes a difference. You know, if all you want to do is V-carve a little sign, then, you know, those little bitty machines work great. But if they wanting to get into a lot more elaborate, say 3D carving or intricate work on you know, plexiglass or etching stainless steel, those require a little more precision. And generally, I lean people towards something that's going to be a little bit more stable and rigid just because of that. And so, yeah, I mean, the little machine has its place, but you know, you can't base all your CNC needs strictly on budget either. It makes a difference.
Yeah, and it's, you know, that's like we were talking about, you know, the other CNC I have is the MakerMade M2. And that's, for people that don't know, it's called the Maslow, and it's the one that kind of hangs from the wall. It's got like two bicycle chains that hold the router on a plate, and it kind of moves around. You know, that was introduced a few years ago, and it was like $350, right? And because you would build this wooden frame yourself, and then the motor and the brains and stuff. And now it's up to, when I got the first one, I started working with MakerMade. They sent me one that was $500 at the time. And I was like, well, I mean, for $500, what are your other CNC options? They're either some little thing from China that you literally have no instructions for, or this 4x8 machine with a company in Arkansas with a couple guys that will answer your phone, like the phone if you call them and have a question. Plus, there's this whole Maslow forum of users. So even though it's, you know, I have this awesome machine, it doesn't make sense in my workflow. I love the concept of that, of making it affordable. And so I was like, well, is it really worth $500? And so, you know, they sent me one, I tested that, and I was like, yeah, it's worth $500. It's lacking the accuracy and the speed of a more expensive machine. And, you know, and stuff like that. But then they made this upgrade to the Z axis, the up and down cutting that is, they built like a little gantry, like a mini one of those basically on the wooden thing that spins around. And now it's $1,000. And I was like, there's no way they're getting $1,000 machine out of this. This piece of plywood hanging off my wall with some bicycle chains. But it's incredibly, that's what I just carved this guitar on it. I've done some sanding since then. And it's pretty darn accurate. The one thing I'm finding is I did the fingerboard too. There's a little bit, when it would go a length across like this, it would actually kind of dip down a little bit. And that has to do with me not quite having the calculations dialed in right. But so if you want to make guitars, don't buy that machine. Like it's going to take, I mean, this took me like a day to carve, whereas on this, it'd take me like an hour, you know, and it has a few issues. You're not going to do that on that machine, but it can. If you're patient and you have that one-off job and you want to get in the CNC, it makes perfect sense. So you're going to make signs, you're going to make some big things. That is going to do everything you need. And it even has the capability of doing what this does. It's just lacking the speed and convenience. So it's really exciting to see that coming. And it's still, you know, when the first CD player came out, it cost me I spent like $300 for like a portable CD player. Now they give them away with bank accounts, you know. So, you know, but it's to see that happening in the CNC world is becoming accessible, you know, is amazing. And it's amazing what they could do with that, you know.
Well, and you know, you mentioned the Piranha. Next Wave actually just came out with a very small unit, and it was called the Barracuda, but it's designed to be right around that $1,000 mark. Same footprint as the Piranha was, and what they're doing is they're creating an upgrade program where if you buy that, you know, and you want to upgrade to say the bigger Shark, you buy the Shark, and they'll give you like $500 back when you trade that little entry model in. So
Oh,
even
cool.
they're seeing the market of being able to do that. And you'll appreciate this. They're not just tossing those machines when they get them back. They refurbish them and then they give them to technical colleges to use for students that are getting into the programs.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic. That's exactly the right way to do it. You
Yep.
know? Yeah, that's I love that. I love that. Avid does something similar where, like, when you get into this model machine, you can continue to expand it, but they don't take the old machine back. It's just you actually like bolt it on like Lego. So you don't have to spend, if you spend this money, you just spend the money for the next piece and the next piece, and you can grow it out. But I love that that idea of sending the tech back and putting it to use. That's great.
Yeah, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, we had talked about that when I went from my 2x3 Avid to this one. I was working with Corey over there, and it took us months to find the right home for that machine, because that was my first thought. I was like, well, let's give it to a local, technical college or whatever, and or high school. And I wasn't finding the right fit. And then we decided to give it to the Young Makers. It's spelled Junge. But it's pronounced Young. It's Brody and Cody. They're brothers that live not too far from here. I think 11 and 13, I think is how old they are. So we gave it to them, and they're making content with it and learning on it. And mostly Cody, the older one, is he's like a wizard on the thing. It's incredible to see what he's doing with it. 13 years old. Like, that kid's gonna reinvent manufacturing in his 30s. You know what I mean?
Well, they're kids. That's what they know, Computer.
Yeah. Yeah, he's amazing with it for his age and his experience. I mean, it's just incredible what he's doing. So, and it makes me super excited to think that the machine that was in my shop is like fueling this kid's future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to think around that age for us, we were more important about the 10-second skip time on a Discman. We were like, hey, mine's got 15 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. To the car with this.
I remember I had this old Jeep Cherokee. It was like it was like one of those cars where you step into it and your foot's just on the other side of the frame but on the ground again, and I had an AM FM radio in it, and it had a cassette deck, as I had the cassette plugged into my portable CD player on the passenger seat driving to work, took a turn, slid off the seat and went through the hole in the floor and just a million pieces on the road. And that was back before the banks were giving them away for free. So it was like $150, just boom. Young, poor musician. I think I cried. I might have actually cried. But it didn't skip for 10 seconds.
That's right.
Well, I just technically it did. It skipped across the road.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That song, awesome. Well, what kind of bits do you use? What's your brand?
I don't really have a brand necessarily. I'm not
sponsored by Klingspor.
If you guys sell them, I'll use them. Corey over at Avid CNC, because I have a relationship with Avid, so he sent me a whole bunch of CNC bits that they stock. They're not branded, so I guess they're Avid brand, like they have their own packaging for them. So I don't know where they're manufactured, but I've been using the ones that Avid sells, and they've been great. And I did some stuff with tools today. I've used some of theirs. They were great. And I've bought the cheapest ones I could find on eBay from China, and they were not great, but they worked. I definitely earlier on, I was quicker to buy the cheap ones because I was breaking them a lot, not knowing what I'm doing. And it's the same with like the table saw. Like, when I did the table saw blade video for you, like, I don't want to spend $120 on a table saw blade, because even though I combed this wood meticulously, pulling every piece of nail out of it, there's still a piece of nail in there I missed. And the same thing happens on the CNC. So if I'm running a $50 end mill and there's a piece of nail in there that I missed, that end mill just instantly chips and it's shot, So I just try to stay to the lower end of them, just because of the nature of my woodworking.
Gotcha.
Yeah, everything has a nail in it here.
That's part of the reclaimed.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the spoil board bit with with the replaceable inserts would be ideal for you then.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you just gutter when you chip a piece of carbide.
Yeah, I wonder how small they make those. I know I have a cheap one for level and spoil board, but that was when I break this one, my goal was to get one of those. Do they make those in like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch where you can change the
They
teeth?
do. As a matter of fact, got one on our table here. Hang on just a second.
No kidding. Reach. Reach.
Glad the solo cup was empty. So we've got it here on our a little bitty Amana.
What's the diameter?
It's 1.5 inch, but it cuts 1 1/4 inch diameter. They've also got the big brother to that. It's the RC 2265.
I think that'd probably be too big for most of what I do, but it might be an alternative for hogging, because with the 3D carving, you'll do a roughing tool pass, and sometimes I'll use like a 1/2 inch end mill, but I might be able to use something like that, and that's where you're going to find the nails, is in the roughing pass. You know what I mean?
Well, and honestly, I've used traditional straight bits and other things, but when I switched to this, the bigger brother to that, the bit is phenomenal because it's got those 3 cutters and it's only cutting down on the tip, and you can rotate those cutters 4 times, clean edge. But the benefit of that is it creates such an air gap between the cutter and the bottom of the cutter head itself that it allows for better airflow and better chip evacuation, and it just it will flatten out. I don't put anything through my planer anymore. I edge glue it. I run it on I'll edge glue it, and I surface it on the CNC. It's just so much faster.
Right. Yeah. That's like I was saying. Like I've been looking into getting one of those helical heads for my planer, but they're more expensive than the planer, and because the same thing happens there. I plane it and I hit a nail, and the only reason I think I don't level on the CNC is because for me right now it's slower. But if I got into a spindle and something like that, and like I had a big one of those, it might actually
be a lot faster.
Not be slower. And if I hit a nail, you just you spin the thing around. That's I'm gonna look into that. Like I said, hopefully next year I'm gonna really up my CNC game a little more.
When I had my Shark, it was really slow. I didn't do it as much, but once I stepped up to the Axiom and had that spindle and had a little faster feed rate capabilities, yeah, 150 inches a minute, nothing. And I surface it, 16th, 8th inch at a time, and it's super flat. So any edge glue ups or any big parts, I can surface it in no time.
Yeah, and you have a spindle on that?
I do.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because I have. You probably have the same motors, like the NEMA 34s or whatever, on yours.
It's similar, yeah.
Yeah, something similar to that size. Like they can rip. I never push anywhere near what it can do because I have a router in it. So. That's like I said, that's the next step. I could probably do that. Thanks. Oh, this is worth it for me right now. Just on that, I got to look those up.
Well, and we sell a lot of those, the bigger brother to that and that one for people who are still surfacing slabs by hand router.
Right.
Those are probably the best 2 bits on the market if you're still surfacing slabs using a traditional router and rail system. Doesn't have to necessarily be CNC, but because of the nature and design of those bits from Amana, I mean, I haven't seen a bit out there that performs better.
Yeah, so like I was saying, picking up firewood and stuff, that's something I've been thinking about in the future, is to get a small mill here. And like for guitars, I don't even need like 8-foot trees, trunks. I just need, if I make the longest like 1-piece guitar, I'm going to make it 4 feet long, So a small mill, and then extending that table out and using that as a milling machine like that to level these slabs. I mean, yeah, that's in the cards, so I'll look those bits up.
Definitely a worthy upgrade.
Yeah, sounds it.
Are the Amanas on sale this week? Because I think they just came aboard the Extravaganza with a huge deal.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of all the CNC, all of our Amana bits, regardless of whether it's CNC or not, are going to be 10% off. And all of our Klingspor bits, which, if you haven't tried those, they were pretty reasonably priced already. They're going to be 15% off.
Oh, and if you type in the code broccoli, you can still get 10 or 15% off.
You can get free shipping on orders of $35 or more.
That's right. Right. My personal coupon. There's no other coupon code like this. It's only me. And I have a special coupon code, broccoli. that will save you 15%, or no, save free shipping on everything over $35 that you order during this extravaganza week.
Extravaganza.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me like he's getting a leg up, having this whole segment all to himself to utilize the whole broccoli idea.
I have to
Marsha.
I like it. You win however you can.
Yeah.
But no, so if there's any bits that you use a lot of, let Mike know or me know, and we'll see if we can't get you one of the Klingspor versions to try.
Yeah, cool. I'll check that out. I
tried about all of them.
I forget how much stuff you guys sell. Like, you sell everything.
If it's woodworking, we got it.
Yeah, it's I was just in your store. Well, there's been a couple times I've been in your store, and it always impresses me. Like, the last time I was there, impressed me was just like how much stuff you had besides sandpaper. I was there to buy sandpaper, and I was, down the rabbit hole, But the other thing was, why I like, working with companies like you is that I have this. I don't know if you can see it over there. I have this Baby Bear. I'm not saying their brand name because I don't like them. Drum sander, and I have a whole reason for not liking them, but I'm not going to trash talk anybody here. But so there's the bottom belt, the drive belt.
Conveyor belt.
Was getting old and worn out, and so I wasn't going to buy one from them. so I went to your site. I couldn't find it. So I called the number. I forget her name because it was a year or so ago. I told her the model number, what I had, and she's like, "Oh, we might have to custom order that for you. Hang on a second." Puts me on for like 30 seconds. She's like, "Oh, we got it here," and it was like $10 or $15, something ridiculous like that. Like, "You want me to send it out right now?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it was like there the next day. It was like an actual human being helping me. I felt like I was in like 1978 again. 1978 prices.
We don't have too much of a I don't know what you call it, but an automated system. It's all people.
Yeah, it was great. It's always a pleasant experience when I go there, which is why we're more than happy to work with you and do this event and have you on the podcast and stuff. It's been a great experience.
Well, good. I'm glad that that's working out because I enjoy the podcast. So that was one of the reasons why we wanted to look at more podcasts. There's a lot of good content out there in them, and you got to sponsor the ones that, have the good stuff.
Yeah, cool, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about today?
That's up to you. I did my CNC spiel. I did the Save the Planet, think twice before throwing something out bit. I talked about holocore doors being the new palette. I think I covered all my bases.
Well, we're going to save your truck pictures and build for maybe something in the future, but that definitely we want to cover that one day. Maybe it might be live where your truck is with us and we do a tour.
Yeah, I think come out to the next extravaganza.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would I built the truck. I mean, the idea is that it can go anywhere, but realistically, it's a little slow and a bit of a gas hog. But I think you guys might be within the, if I took my time going down there, made it a little event, I think that'd be pretty cool. It'd be about like the sort of radius, that I would want to take it. You're in North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
All right, forget South Carolina. I'm not going there.
You've gone too.
Yeah, that's too far. But yeah, that'd be cool. We'll have to see. Hopefully the world will open up again to where we can do that like responsibly, and we can maybe make a little. It'd be cool to do like a little. Not Where's Waldo, but like where on earth is what was it? Dora the Explorer thing with the little map, the little lines, and tracking the stops and stuff. I don't know. Selling guitars. Selling guitars in Walmart parking lots everywhere from here to North Carolina.
By the way, not sponsored.
Indeed.
But yeah, no, that'd be a lot of fun because I think people would also see the benefits in taking an older vehicle like that, just a simple box truck, and turning it into what you've done.
Right. It does sort of fit in with my MO too, of just, using with what you got and finding a way to do it without, the idea of having like a mobile store. And it even came out of because I love my workshop, but it's not customer friendly, and I wanted to have a retail space for my instruments. So I was looking into renting a building downtown, or maybe buying a building. The whole downtown's empty here. It's like an old mill town that dried up, but all these buildings are being like, basically people are squatting on them, like they're sitting on them for tax write-offs or whatever. They won't sell them, they won't fix them up, and you can't go in and they charge too much for rent. And so it was really depressing, like realizing like, oh, maybe I'm just stuck in this barn and I can never have a store. And then I just had that idea of like, well, while this truck is not eco-friendly when you compare it to trucks, compared to a 2,000 square foot brick and mortar building, it's like squeaky clean. You know what I mean? Like versus heating and air conditioning a giant building like that and all the utilities that go into that. And then it has those added benefits of being mobile and unique and kitsch. So like that whole thing, from buying a 25-year-old box truck, using all reclaimed materials, building it out, and having state-of-the-art solar panels and lithium-ion batteries, a sound system in it. I mean, the whole thing is well south of 20 grand, and I have a store I can drive to North Carolina.
And an instant stage.
And and an instant stage. I mean, it took me a few months to do. It's still not done. It'll never be done. You know what I mean? But it's like how much if I were to have rented, not even bought, like just like rented a store downtown and wanted to put sheetrock up and make it all up to code and do all this. I mean, I'd be easily 20 grand in just before I even had the doors open. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And this can take a tour, which is kind of nice, and get you out there more in front of people as well, as far as knowing that this is a possibility. Because the I don't want to say the rolling road show, if you will, but at the same time, with how things are, that might be the new thing that's coming around for people instead of the brick and mortar.
Well, I've done a couple. I'm actually doing a concert this Sunday for a friend of mine at a brewery outdoors on the truck. I'm going to play a couple songs, but it's just basically I'm going to run sound. And then I did a couple shows with my old bands because I'm retired from doing that. But now that I have the truck on, and because of this time, like it sort of works. At first because I built it to basically go to guitar shows, right? The idea being that when I go to a guitar show, I have to set up my booth like everybody else sets up their booth. You walk into a conference hall and you walk around, you look at Ridge guitars and you leave. First brand you see when you got there, the last brand you saw when you left, and it'll be a complete unique shopping experience compared to all the other guys' booths. And so far I talked to a couple people that run these shows that I've worked with, and they love the idea and they're totally on board with me just paying the regular booth fare and putting my truck out front. I'm sure the other makers are going to hate me, but go big or go home. Yeah, right. Creativity is it's not you have it too. You're a creative person. You figure out your own thing to be unique. And then like I bought the truck, and then like literally like 2 days later the world shut down, and it's like, great, I just invested all this money into something that's designed to bring in. All my guitar shows got canceled, but because of the stage capability of using it for a bandstand in this COVID time, like we're working on we might put together a gig in a couple of weeks in a field. My old bandmate wants to basically just charge cars, right? So each car is a quarantine bubble, you flat fee for the car to park there, and then we just do a show out in the woods. And I'm off grid. I have a 6,000 watt PA system on there that I can run off the solar battery in the dark, even for like 5-6 hours. I can run that thing. So we could just literally drive this truck and play anywhere, and that's what the truck is being used for now. Hopefully it'll get to be used the way I intended, as well in the future. But it's been a great learning experience, and it's just like that whole thing of stepping outside your comfort zone, thinking a little bit differently, thinking outside the box, and using that creative muscle, not just doing what you were taught, not being afraid to fail. All those lessons, like the truck is a great example of it. I freaking love that thing, man. I just drove it I was just driving it yesterday. Like I have it parked at my house right now. So I just commuted to work and back in. It's just so much fun.
It's like a rolling billboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't got the wrap on it yet, but it's still pretty much a rolling billboard. But it will have full graphics on the side and stuff.
Now, we did have a comment from Sean Patterson. He said he enjoyed listening to the Reclaimed Audio podcast, and he'd heard about Klingspor a long time, and he was wondering if Reclaimed guys would interview you for us. So I'm guessing interviewing the Klingspor guys.
On the podcast?
That's what his comment was.
Yeah. we could. Oh, there. The, yeah, we could probably work something out like that. We did put out. I don't know, Sean, if you heard this week's episode of the podcast yet, but we did. It was a live chat like this that all three of us did with you two, with Chris and Mike, and that's this week's episode of the podcast. But it's definitely not us asking about Klingspor. Maybe we should grill Cameron.
There you go.
No offense to you guys, but grill the boss man. I don't know.
Let's see what Coleman says about that.
I said Coleman. I meant that's what I meant.
No, it sounds the same.
He's
Cameron
been called
Coleman.
worse, trust me. No,
Yeah, I don't have the.
I love
I can't see
Coleman.
the chat. Oh, you still work there? I thought we got you fired a couple of days ago.
Well, he said I had to finish out the show because Mike, he didn't want Mike to be alone. So after the show's over last Saturday, I probably won't have anything to come back to Monday.
This is your parachute.
Yeah, so then you'll just be interviewing the Klingspor guy.
That's not going to be the same.
Yeah, we could probably do that. Might be fun. We'll have to think of a good topic. Maybe it could be because we tried some of our episodes are just sort of us yapping about what we do, and then other ones we try to really zero. Maybe we could like zero in on like sandpaper, like everybody's like thing they love to hate about woodworking. You know, I mean, we all love the results, but none of us want to do it. You know. Yeah. Maybe we could do like an actual like with someone, you know, like Mike or Chris, you know, someone who understands sandpaper from a manufacturing standpoint as well as a woodworking standpoint, and what, you know, that the first step of finishing, like a real like tutorial, like what, because I know I'm sure I'm doing everything wrong. You know what I mean? Like I know, you know, you start at 60, you go to 300, whatever, but I'm sure I'm doing stuff wrong that could be better. Maybe you could give us like a little sanding lesson.
Oh, and believe me, I know personally, I've done a lot of CNC stuff with 3D stuff, and man, I've tried everything we offer to eliminate some of that sanding, and I've found quite a few of our little trinkets that are very, very good.
Yeah.
Some not so much, but others very, very good for doing a lot of that weird contour 3D stuff.
Right. Well, that I would be interested in that too, because, you know, like you look at the one complaint I have about your site is that there's just so many choices. It's like overwhelming. And if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, it can be like, oh, well, I want to sand this, you know. And but again, like I said before, if you call Klingspor, someone will tell you, you know, if you get
0000.
There you go. If you call, someone will actually help you and be able to help you make a decision. But like I know when I was just there, you know, buying sandpaper, that I felt that I was like, well, do I do this or this? And so I'm sure, like, and then you see that a lot of like these like gizmos, like you know, I'm a skeptic by nature for like the new and improved, you know. So when you see like a sanding pad or something, like, oh well, is that really better than my finger, you know, and a piece of, you know. So yeah, that would be interesting too. Like, is it really worth the extra money for the flat disc versus just using the flat? And is it really worth buying the sanding sponge versus just using like a literal sponge and a piece of sandpaper wrapped around it? That'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, because that's one of the things we were talking about doing, was actually covering what the products are, what we find uses for, and then what we found other people have used for it. Because the nice part about us is that we work with Klingspor abrasives, but we find things that they weren't intended to be used for, they work great for. So we're going to do something along those lines with videos and content to kind of help people. Like with the guitar building in general, I know that the Mac mop we sell would be great for the contour sanding, make really quick sanding of it. But at the same time, many people don't think of it that way. They think of like baseball bats and high contour areas. They wouldn't think of the body of a guitar.
Yeah, you have to point me to that. I just bought the micro mesh pads for polishing frets, and they work really well for that. Just those little tiny squares, they're like the perfect size, and there's a lot of surface on them, and they clean. Like they're not like sandpaper that's sort of like you can clean them and use them again, which is nice. And then I went and just on my truck, when I was driving my truck yesterday, I had gotten some overspray of spray paint on. I put a backup camera on it. So I had this overspray of spray paint. So when you turned the camera on, it was just these little dots, you know, all over the plastic lens. And so I used those micro mesh pads and polished that lens up. They worked great for that. You know, like little things like that. Like that was like whatever, it was like a $10 investment or whatever that little kit was. And they've already earned their keep, and I haven't even worn them out yet.
Yeah.
You know, so but like that was one of those ones I was looking at. I was like, I have 200 to 2,000 grit sandpaper, and I have my little I have like a roll of plastic bags that I wrap it around because it kind of squishes a little bit. And I was like, these really going to be better than my roll of plastic bags?
Yeah, I mean, how
you know,
that?
How could you beat my roll of dog waste bags that I have rolled up with masking tape? You know, you and your highfalutin.
So over.
Cool. Yeah. The other thing that you might look into doing is like I remember being on the website eTrailer.com and I bought some stuff for my truck, and they had like literally every product that I clicked on. They had a 1 minute long video of just a dude in front of a white wall with a table in front of him, and he's like, "This is this. It goes from here to here. It goes from, you know, it looks like this." He just held it and he said, "And you use it like this." And it was like 30 seconds to a minute long for each video. And you have thousands and thousands of products, but in some instances, like you could do like one of those videos that would cover like a whole line of sandpaper, you know? Mm-hmm. And then when you go to the website and you click on the sandpaper, all the pictures is like the little video, and you click it and just this little, you know, very low res video pops up just so you actually hear someone talking about it. And, you know, that might be something that you can, you know, make more work for you, you know?
We just talked about that about a week ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coleman just needs to hire some people to replace us, and then we will start all video marketing and advertising and podcasting and product video technical stuff.
Yeah, because if you call the 800 number or go to woodworkingshop.com and you have a technical question, it's usually us that will help anybody with a question. And if we don't know the answer, we have all 4 of our stores that have woodworkers in it, and they have application knowledge. So we try to find an answer to your question no matter what it is. So that would be the hard part of replacing that part of the job, because that takes up a lot of our day. It really does.
Yeah.
And we're both avid woodworkers, so you know
Coleman, call me. I'm available.
Perfect. I have no problem with that.
Well, there's my replacement. I guess I won't see you Monday.
I'll see one of you on Monday. I don't know, whoever makes it through the weekend.
By the way, Coleman, that wasn't sponsored either. But Tim, I thank you so much for joining us today and just in talking with us about everything CNC related, how your business is working, the things that you've done. And of course, Tim's website, if you would like to purchase the Sqwayer that he has made, it's a thin piece of metal that's almost like a 5-in-1 tool with angles and holes and center lines and you name it. It's a tool that you could utilize in any shop.
Or you could take the long way there and go to timsway.net and then end up there.
If you want to have some fun and learn more about Tim and then head on over to buy something, you can do it that way too.
Yeah. Either or. Awesome.
But
thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. And then today at 1:00, we've got Earlex that'll be on. Sam from Earlex will be there. And then at 3:00, we'll have the team from Kutzall answering your power carving questions.
Nice. Cool.
Thank you again. Have a great day, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye, everybody.